Welcome to Scriptural Snapshots, brought to you by Living Faith Ministries in Kaiser, West Virginia, where we bring the living Word of God into your life. I'm Pastor Gordon Brubaker. We've been talking for several weeks about the home of the brave. In the second stanza of the Star Spangled Banner, he says, now it catches the gleam of the morning's first beam. He's talking about the flag, that the flag is catching the gleam of the morning light. He says, in full glory reflected now, shines in the stream. As the light increases, we're seeing that the flag is still there after this 25-hour bombardment. He says, in full glory reflected now shines in the stream. 'Tis the Star-Spangled Banner, oh, long may it wave. The fort hasn't fallen. The fort hasn't given up. The fort is still there. The men are still standing. They're still willing to fight. They're willing to stand against this battle, this onslaught. He says, over the land of the free and the home of the brave. This had to be a real joyous occasion for Francis Scott Key as he stood there. The British had an overwhelming force. There was no way that anybody could resist them. They were getting ready to invade Baltimore, and this one fort stood in the way. And if the fort fell, that was the end of it. Baltimore would have been captured, probably burned like they burned Washington, D.C., destroyed, all these people put to flight. This fort was the last bastion. It was the last defense of Baltimore, and it stood. Oh, he must have been so happy to know that his city wasn't going to be destroyed. After this battle, the British set sail out of the harbor because they knew they couldn't do it. They couldn't do what they couldn't fulfill their plans. It must have been similar to how the disciples were when they got news that Jesus had been raised from the dead. You know, it was the women first that went, and they found the grave empty, and the angels talked to him and said, he's not here, he's risen. He said, go and tell the disciples that he's alive, that he's not in the tomb anymore. So the women go back. You know, the disciples, oh, you women, what has happened to you? You're just making this stuff up. And so Peter and John, they decided, well, we're going to go and check it out. And they ran there. When they got there, Peter goes inside. I think it was Peter, and John stood on the outside. But they looked, and he's gone. He's gone. What they must have felt, the confusion. What does this mean? But also the hope of the glory. And they began to remember. Jesus told us he would be crucified. Jesus told us he would be buried, and he said on the third day, which is today, on Sunday, he said on the third day he would rise from the dead. Maybe it's true. And Francis Scott Key must have been going through the same emotions of where maybe this nation will survive against an overwhelming force, an overwhelming attack of the enemy. And it gives hope to us as we think about the resurrection, as we think about what is going on, that our republic can survive. But it's going to take a work. We can't just sit back in our lounge chairs. We can't just sit back and say, well, we're just going to trust God. No, God calls people to action. And if you're the land of the free and the home of the brave, you will stand up. We talked about this several weeks ago. But freedom produces a call to stand. And free men stand against the wiles of the enemy. And so here he is. Now it catches the gleam of the morning's first beam, in full glory reflected, it now shines in the stream. 'Tis a star-spangled banner, oh, long may it wave over the land of the free and the home of the brave. May the hope of Christ in our nation, may it not diminish. May it stand firm and stand strong. May the church rise up and take our rightful place and begin to teach that our liberties come from God, just like in the Declaration of Independence. Isn't that unusual? We declare that these rights are from our Creator, the right of life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness. See, God is the center of this. And if you remove God, then everything else collapses, because it's the hope of Christ that sustains our nation, that our nation is built on. And when you remove that foundation, it all collapses. And Francis Scott Key is experiencing the jubilation. The people are still standing. They haven't given up their liberty. They haven't given up the cause yet. They haven't said, oh man, we're tired of this. We quit and go home. And it's our day to stand. It's our day to shine. The light is beginning to rise. The flag is beginning to shine. The hope of liberty of Jesus Christ is beginning to rise back up in our nation. and we're seeing the hope of the glory of a living God that saves and delivers. We're beginning to see that again in the land of the free and the home of the brave. I'm Pastor Gordon Brubaker. God bless you.